Roses are often considered the queen of the garden. They're elegant, but some people tend to think that they might be a little high maintenance. And I think a lot of times when we're talking about pruning roses especially, people get a little bit anxious about what to do and when to do it for fear that they might damage or even possibly kill the roses. But really, roses have come a long way and they're a lot more resilient than we might give them credit for. Now, typically you want to prune most of your shrub roses in mid-March, and that's because pruning roses can often cause new growth to come out. And as we know, in Oklahoma, a lot of times we get late freezes, and so that new growth is going to die back. But at the same time, we are in Oklahoma and the weather is variable, and so you can see here we already have some new growth coming on it, and you really want to prune it before it takes off too much also. So when you're looking at a rose, you're looking at mainly maintaining its shape and its size because it's going to, again, increase throughout the growing season. When you start pruning, it's really best to use a pair of long-handled pruners or loppers, and that allows you to get into the shrub without scratching up your arms too much. Now, when we're looking at pruning hybrid teas, multifloras or polyanthas or floribundas, you really are going to look at pruning down to about a 12 to 24 inch height, taking it all the way back to the ground to 12 to 24 inches. Now, if it's a rose that you haven't pruned in several years, you might want to prune back to that upper end of 24 inches just so you're not cutting it back too much, too drastically, too soon. So here we've got one. It's probably about 3 feet high, so we're going to try to take it back to some of these main branches down in here. And when you're pruning, you're going to want to open up the structure a little bit, make it more of an open canopy, and that allows for good airflow. So we're going to look to prune something. First thing that you're going to want to prune is anything that's dead. So you can see we've got a couple of dead stems in here. And we're going to take those out first. So after we've cut anything dead, we also want to cut anything that is rubbing. And so you can see this branch here is rubbing on the one behind it. Because this one is going more towards the inside of the canopy of the rose, we're going to take out this one. Okay, so dead, diseased, and damaged. So we've taken out the dead, we've taken out the damaged, and we fortunately don't have any diseased branches on here to remove. So the next thing we're going to do is kind of reduce this back down to that 18 inches height. And so we'll just start gradually taking some of this off. And you can kind of see some of this is just the newer growth. And we'll do a lot of cleanup as we get closer in there and can see better. But we're just going to take it back to some of the branches that are about 18 inches. Again, you can use your loppers to kind of pull those out of the way a little bit in order to see what's going on in there. So as we get more and more of the bulk removed off of the plant, we're going to get in there with our hand pruners and do a little more detail work to clean up some of the smaller things. And one of the things that we want to look at are the buds as to guide us where we're going to make our cuts. So you can see they have alternate buds. Here it comes out this side and then it comes out the opposite side as you go up the stem, back and forth as you go. And what you're going to want to do is cut above a bud that is facing outward. So if we were to cut above this bud right here, this will initiate growing and cause it to grow in toward the middle of the shrub. Whereas if we cut above here, it's going to grow out, allowing for a more open canopy, which is important for good air circulation and reduce the potential for diseases. So again, here you've got your inward facing bud, this is going out, and so you'd make a 45-degree cut right above that bud. And it's really best to do it on an angle so that when you have any water, that's going to run off instead of having it set right on a flat stem. All right, once you get it to a manageable height that you're really looking at establishing, you're also going to start looking at the center of it and take out some of the smaller, more spindly canes. Anything that's less than the size of a pencil, you really want to go ahead and remove. So really, again, this is the best way to prune many of your shrub roses, your multiflora, floribundas, polyanthas, and your hybrid tea roses. Again, taking them down to a 12 to 24 inch height. So for your old-fashioned roses that you might have, they don't need a lot of regular pruning. They tend to create their own natural mound, so you might just prune them occasionally to keep them back if you want to keep them in check a little bit. But the others prefer a yearly prune early in the springtime before they really start flushing out. Now on your climbing roses, those are a little bit different. Because they put a big flush of flowers in the springtime, you're going to prune those after they bloom. And when you're pruning climbing roses, you're looking to remove the older canes, the large canes, and allow those newer canes to really develop, because that's where you're going to get the most flowers the following year. So you're going to want to go ahead and tie those or train them somehow to the arbor or trellis or the structure that is supporting them. So regardless of what you're pruning, after you've pruned everything, you want to make sure to thoroughly clean and rake up any of the debris to prevent any diseases from continuing to grow on that new foliage that will soon be emerging. When you're pruning, again, don't be afraid to make multiple cuts on that same branch. It's always better to cut less than it is to cut too much, and then of course you can't re-glue things back together. So there are several times where you might just reduce it and then realize that you need to cut it even further, and that's okay. And make sure that you take a step back and look at it occasionally. I mean, you can see we've reduced this plant a lot and it looks a little drastic, but don't worry, it will come back. Even the queen of the garden needs a little tough love.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.